Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the story of Jin Hyuk, whose favorite game turned into reality, and he is using his game knowledge to get super strong and steal all the skills. If you haven't watched the previous part, the link is in the description. Today's like goal is 1,000 likes, and I know you guys will reach it instantly. So go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe for more videos in the future. So let's continue the story. For sure. I admit that you are different from the humans I have seen. Soulless mumbled. Although the Tower of Trials had been opened and many had challenged the boss, it was the first time it had been challenged in such a unique manner. It was the first time he felt a threat. I will admit that. Jin Hyuk shrugged. This was what he would do even if he hadn't been acknowledged. Why do you seem to be getting stupider? What? I was correct. I acted carefully and warily because I heard nonsense about you winning a few times against the weak. Isn't this why you're stuck on the 3rd floor and can't climb higher? The boss monsters in the Tower of Trials acted like the gatekeepers of each floor while being able to exert their influence across the entire floor. It meant that their roles were closer to managers of their assigned floor. And it was not just players that could expand their power and climb the tower. They, too, had the power to do that. Ha ha ha. Seriously, you are a fierce one. Human. Soulless laughed. It was a laugh that was filled with anger and frustration. Did you think I didn't cross to the 4th floor because I didn't have enough strength? I wasn't just thinking of it. I actually said it right to your face. If the meaning wasn't conveyed right, I would tell you again. At your level, the 4th floor is too much. The 3rd floor's last gate suits you better. His words were blunter than before. It was an outright verbal assault. A method to anger his opponent. Shaking your opponent's mind seems to be your plan. But Soulless didn't take the bait. Right. You can take it whatever you want it as. However, let me tell you that the absolute difference in troops and superiority cannot be overturned with tactics. Rather, Soulless calmly understood and judged the situation as they left it up to their subordinates. The stone statues moved as if taking up a formation. Despite the overwhelming difference in troops, the Soulless planned to do all he could to capture the human and crush him. Even if this becomes a war of attrition, your soldiers will wither and die. If you make one mistake, that will be the end of the fight. Any poor judgment on Jin Hyuk's part would lead to the annihilation of his entire army. Soulless then got up from its seat and looked down at its army of stone statues. Go. It gave its order in a low-pitched voice. The stone statues smashed the ground as the curtain rose on this battle. Now was the start. Jin Hyuk looked at the stone statues rushing in. Instead of sending its whole army at once, Soulless had ordered an advance guard of around 1,000 that were rapidly closing in. As expected, are you going to look at the opponent's response? If his troops seemed inexperienced, then the rest of his troops would be sent in right away. In other words, Soulless was testing him. Whether or not you are indeed a mouth-wateringly worthy opponent. Smile. Jin Hyuk smiled. The ability of First Chessboard is activated. Field Magic Battlefield Domination is activated. Increases attack and defense of all chess pieces on the field by 30%. The morale increased by 10%. Blue magic spread across the ground. The bodies of the chess pieces on the field began to glow. They were, of course, lesser. It was absurd to compare numbers to his opponent. However, do not assume that the combat power of each entity was the same. Pawns in the center take 5 steps back. Left and right pawns move a step forward. Jin Hyuk gave the order. And? The black-armored pawns quickly changed their formation. Chess piece pawn activates hardness. A shield 2 meters in length was also embedded into the ground. It was in preparation for the shock which would come. The stone statue's footsteps came closer and shook the ground. At that very moment, gray waves crashed upon the black barrier with a deafening roar. From now, this was a battle of pure strength. The pawns were pushed back slightly, but the solidly formed defensive line didn't break. A brief stalemate ensued. Now! Jin Hyuk shouted. Chess piece Rook activates multiple assault shots. Steel arrows were released into the air in unison. The arrows fell in a parabolic arc and pierced through the statues. The stone statues gathered in one place to defend each other from the attack and spread out in a small shielding encirclement. But that was a mistake. This time a large flaming attack flew in from the other side. Chess piece bishop activates Flame Strike. The bishops, who were casting magic before the battle even started, released their attack. The fire began to fall down from the sky like a meteor shower. In an instant, all that was left was a large crater in the middle of the ground. A crater filled with broken limbs and blown-up bodies. The stone statues had been broken into small pieces of rocks. So great was the destructive power of the attack. Because they had concentrated their formation to block the arrows, the fire attack's damage on the attacking unit was very potent. Of course, even this was Jin Hyuk's plan. Nice. This attack's failure would probably make the assault stop for a moment. Go ahead. A short command followed. The pawns pulled out their shields, which had been stabbed into the ground. The purpose of this was to move forward. And there began the one-sided massacre. Ho! An exclamation of surprise escaped from Solas's mouth as it watched the battle. He had expected a tough battle, but it had ended too quickly. The 1,000 statues that he had sent were all completely destroyed. On the other hand, not even 100 of the chess pieces had been defeated. A one-sided defeat. We cannot win a fight using equal numbers. The enemy's forward line with those shield soldiers was solid. Even if they attempted to break through, the damage would be too great. But Solas considered that sending a group was probably worth it. Solas activates LV-14 military strategy. It reached into its battlefield experience that had been honed through countless battles. Military strategy was a skill that would deliver optimal stratagems based on the vast amount of accumulated battle records. The reason the raid teams were having such a hard time was all because of this one skill. The overall protection is good, but there is a gap on the left side. The line looked thin, and the bishops took a long time to cast their magic. It looked like an appetizing target. It was a spot where only one good attack was needed to collapse the entire structure. But why? Why didn't it feel like it was worth attacking it? It looks a bit too appetizing. It felt like a poisoned apple. Something felt off. That was why it didn't give its soldiers the command to move. Solas activates LV-14 Insight of Weakness. As it activated its skill, a status window appeared. 1. If you destroy the crown on the chessboard, all the pieces will be destroyed. 2. The crown exists on either the king or queen. 3. A crowned king or queen must be protected by the innermost chess pieces. 4. When a king or queen is not wearing the crown, all the stats increase by 100% for the enemy leader, only when a king or a queen wore the crown. Solas narrowed its eyes on those conditions. Is that girl playing the role of queen? Behind the layer of soldiers was a silver-haired girl that wore a crown. On the other hand, Jin Hyuk, who could be considered the king, was leading the knights in preparation for a move elsewhere. At that moment, a thought flashed through its mind. I see. It was like that. Now he understood the intentions of his opponents. It was to goad it into an attack. Then why would it attack? Solas decided to spread out its troops further. To fight me. To be precise, it was to make full use of the fourth point that highlighted the effect of 100% stat increase when fighting. On the surface, the man acted like he would fight on the front without sacrificing his soldiers. But he was actually trying to save his life by using his base as bait. Interesting? Contrary to his robust appearance, the enemy had the mind of 100 snakes. But once it understood his intentions, it could take advantage of him. Do whatever you want. Instead, my men will strike the queen before your sword reaches me. Solas smiled. Is that what you are thinking? Jin Hyuk looked relaxed. Having provoked the boss so much, he knew the next path it would choose was the safest and surest one. Defeat would be unbearable to its status as a floor boss. And as long as you have the ability to detect weakness, you must have understood the weakness and intention too. A confidence that was formed through questions and resolving issues. The more intelligent the individual, the more thought they would put into a situation. Of course, the cost of overthinking would also be painful. It was then. Is this really fine? Elise, who was wearing the crown, asked him. Are you worried? Of course I am not. I know you aren't normal. But neither is that thing. It isn't like it is guarding the third floor without reason. It is the first time I have seen you compliment someone. So, are you trying to say Solas is stronger than your people? What? No. Are you saying that hollow-headed stones with bodies are on par with the nobles of the night? If I wasn't imprisoned within the corridor, That guy wouldn't. Elise raised her voice. Seeing her yell, it felt like her tension was somewhat relieved. Do not worry. I have it planned out. All you need to do is keep the crown on. Who would keep the crown longer? Who will cut the opponent's head first? Those two factors would be what determined victory or defeat in this fight. And Jin Hyuk already had the answer. Is that possible? No? Are you really going to move like that? Elise looked on in disbelief. This was hard to believe. Not only had he read through the opponent's stratagem, but he also saw through Solus's character as if he had known the boss monster for 10 years. Above all, the hidden card prepared at the end was something even Elise could never imagine. What are you? Are you human? Elise gulped. From their first meeting, she knew this man was full of surprises. What was happening here was beyond that. I am just one of those people who likes the world. 11 years was a long time, and he enjoyed his time here. That was why he had clung to this place more than anyone else. He wasn't a genius who could learn things instantly, nor was he born as someone with talent. He had exhausted and worn himself out. That was all. Phew, it is really like you. Elise sighed. No matter how much she asked, he would never talk about his true identity. Protect what is on your head. It is quite expensive. Don't worry. I am not the kind to lose what I get. Anyway, you're going to be miserable, so see you later. Jin Hyuk, having said his goodbyes, moved away from Elise. He arrived at a vast open space across from his primary formation of chess pieces on the far right. Jin Hyuk whistled, and heavily armored cavalry units equipped with lances lined up on both sides of Jin Hyuk. You called? An emotionless voice came from a knight atop a horse. Unlike the other chess pieces, this was a unique object imbued with intelligence. These were the knights that he had saved for this moment. Let's go. Jin Hyuk grabbed a lance. Yes, sir. The Black Knight bowed its head. 300 knights began their advance through the bamboo forest, the sound of their movement echoing all around. At that moment, among the stone statues, there were ones with unusually long limbs. They began to run towards Jin Hyuk. This unit numbered around 3,000. However, each of them were just a medium-level units. He is aiming for the base. It would be an ambiguous strategy to go back and block it, but there were too many of them to simply ignore them. Perhaps this was what Solus aimed for. What do we do? Ignore it. As those 3,000 move forward, the defensive wall would become thinner. Jin Hyuk pointed to the empty gap in the center of the statues. As soon as we dig in, the forces on both flanks will block the escape route. Yes, he understood it. It was a gap that was left intentionally open. The purpose was to lure the opponent and lock them in from the sides before taking the crown from Elise. The intentions were too obvious just by looking at how large the opening in the center was. However, all the possible plans had been established. The 3,000-strong units were sent to take the crown. The premise will be that I need to be faster in killing it. Jin Hyuk increased his movement speed as the enemy approached. We break through at once. He shouted loudly with his lance pointed forward. Chess pieces, knight, activates wedge formation. Damage on impact increased by 200%. His knights took up an assault formation that would generate maximum destructive power even with smaller numbers on their side. 300 knights from the right side dug right into the enemy line. The stone statues touched by the lance were blown apart, and their fragments dispersed over the ground. That was how strong Jin Hyuk's unit was. The layered defense formation was shattered by using a breakthrough at a single point that combined their superior weight and speed. Jin Hyuk, who was at the vanguard, captured the momentum of the attack and dug deep into the defensive line. Some of the statues desperately resisted, but they were helpless against Jin Hyuk. Only named monsters would even stand a chance. In just a minute, Jin Hyuk and his knights reached the deepest point of the enemy camp. Jin Hyuk raised his head and saw Solus sitting atop its bejeweled stone statue. He is smiling. The corners of its lip curled up to a smile, and its face was confident of victory. You've made it this far, human. You deserve the praise for leading such a small number of soldiers and making it in front of me. Keep speaking nonsense. I know you opened the space up intentionally. Oh? You knew this was a trap? Something like that. That's funny, but why did you walk in then? Walk in? Maybe because this looked like the Han River on a midsummer night? Look, there is beer and chicken here. Even in this situation, you act like this. At this point, I think I've overestimated you. Solus slowly raised both of its hands. Well, that's enough. Why would you entrust the crown to such a skinny child, or why you came straight inside here? It isn't worth giving you my time anymore. Solus clasped its hands together. I need to end you. At that signal, stone statues on either side of Solus began to move towards Jin Hyuk, making him frown. He even summoned the statue of David and the clearing the foul traces. Similar to the monster from yesterday, they were powerful named monsters. His knights began to shatter without being able to resist much. Their armors split in half, and their lances shattered against the assault. Pwahaha! There aren't any people in the world better than Shiva. A stone monster burst into laughter. I see no human with the right proportions. A statue of David scanned its foe's body up and down. Both combat maniacs and perverts were in one place. This was a rare sight. Indeed, the amount of magic that Solus possessed was enormous. Seeing that it could control monsters of this caliber, it must have nearly endless magic. After all, a boss is a boss. But, despite the overwhelmingly unfavorable situation, Jin Hyuk looked unperturbed. In fact, he was smiling. Have you lost it? Why are you smiling? I will point out two things that you are mistaken about. Jin Hyuk folded his first finger. First, the stone statues you sent out. You picked them out thinking you are pretty confident of the win, right? Right. Only the elite was selected, and they are people I can trust with any task. I did the same. What? The one I entrusted with the crown. She is someone I can trust. As Jin Hyuk finished his words, red blood rose up into the air. These bastards, how dare you try to touch me for real? Elise's face was angry. Elise activates Rain of Fresh Blood. Hundreds of harpoons made of blood filled the sky. They were many in number, but they were also imbued with tremendous amounts of magic. The sunlight disappeared as black clouds took their place. Die. Elise sighed coldly, and it ended with that. The stone statues began to crumble under the endless rain of blood. This was something that was usually seen only in movies. Even then, the magic supply was still limited. Had she been able to use her full powers, the whole area would have been devastated. What? Solus, who was watching this, gasped in shock. He had deliberately sent his best soldiers for the assault. In front of the white-haired girl, they were barely better than paper soldiers. This was absurd. Just how... As Solus struggled to consolidate the reality of the situation, Jin Hyuk folded his second finger. And next. What you thought was a lure to trap me deep in your formation was instead something I was looking for. The trigger conditions were quite tricky, but he had met all of the conditions just in time. Loading memories of the world. Jin Hyuk summoned it to review his skills. The abilities that he could use as materials for fusion were Blood Demon Chi and Mandala. He could easily turn the current situation if he fused those two abilities. Unique ability, Blood Demon Chi and Mandala are fused. You have succeeded in fusing. You have acquired the Double Agent S skill. Rank is lowered from S to A because the activation condition is difficult. Double Agent, acquisition difficulty, A, description. You can brainwash enemies, making them point their swords at each other. However, the target of the double spy must be a summoned beast summoned by a boss monster, and can be used when the distance from the boss monster that summoned them is within 5 meters. Thank you. Because Solus had let him come to the required range that was needed to activate the necessary ability. LV-1 Double Agent is activated. A transparent wave rippled out from Jin Hyuk's body. At that moment, strange things began to happen in the tightly packed stone statue formation. The swords and spears aimed at Jin Hyuk and his knights were now directed to their fellow statues. Almost half of the stone statues began to run rampant in an instant. This included even those statues that were considered named monsters. I like the proportions of your body, that fucking Western body. Even David was going crazy. An unsightly crack appeared on his face. Whoa, what is this all of a sudden? Shut up. From the start, I didn't like your face, nor your abs or thighs. As long as the attack was already made, it was useless to speak anymore. Now even the named monsters considered each other enemies. The battlefield had changed. Damn it. You were doing this on purpose? Soulless clenched its fist. I dug a trap. If you wanted to catch someone with a brain, you couldn't do it all at once. You needed to plan it step by step. Well, it is round 2 now. There was just one player here. However, that one person possessed the power of tens of thousands. Black Leaf has been activated. The stone statues afflicted with corruption are rapidly weakened. To accelerate the ending, Jin Hyuk even used the last hidden card. The surface of the stone statues became dyed black, and the soldiers that had boasted invincibility slowly collapsed. This is absurd. Soulless staggered and stepped back in disbelief. The stone statue it was riding on also retreated alongside. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. But it was of no use. The many stone statues protecting him were now busy fighting amongst themselves. Above all of those, the summoned statues were the most annoying. Soulless's power and magic had grown beyond the reach of a normal named monster. LV3 Glacier Formation is activated. A thin wall of ice blocked Soulless's path. Where are you thinking of running? This was the fun part, so why was it leaving? Stay till the end. I cannot admit to this. The ability to interfere with the summons of... There can be no such thing. Soulless shouted with a pale face and trembling voice. Well, from its point of view, this situation would indeed be entirely unacceptable. You have the freedom to deny reality, but the more you do, the stupider you'll seem. Jin Hyuk gathered up his magic. A golden glow appeared on his finger. Did it feel the unusual magic coming from him? Soulless jumped off the statue's head and gave an order. Stop him! Stop that guy! Somehow he had to be stopped from using the mandala. The bejeweled stone statue raised both hands as a large shadow fell over Jin Hyuk. The ground cracked from the attack, but there was nothing left below to crush. Even when cornered, you still have the habit of passing things onto your subordinates and running away. A body soaring high in the sky. Jin Hyuk was suddenly holding a bow that had been made using glacier formation. Of course, the arrows were ice too. A golden arrow imbued with the mandala's light was in full bloom. Glacier formation and mandala resonate. Exorcism arrow activated. A single ray of light. The light flew in a straight line and pierced Soulless through the chest. Visible heat rose up at the speed it had gone in. Damn it! Soulless looked down at the wound with a face full of despair and shock. It was only for a moment, as no living being could survive without a heart. Soulless staggered back and fell without a sound. Third-floor boss monster Soulless has fallen. Golden status windows appeared one after another as he cleared the 3rd floor. Or 4th floor of Tower of Trials now open. Time remaining until clearing next floor. 89D, 23H, 59mm, 59s. Level has risen. Level has risen. Multiple notifications popped in an instant. In addition, his level had gone up 5 times. This was a huge achievement considering the increase in necessary experience value per level. That stat I should increase is magic. The next reward that he could get was directly in front of him. Jin Hyuk walked between the stone statues and looked. He spotted a box next to Soulless's corpse. This is? His eyes trembled. Violet, indigo, yellow, green, blue, orange, red. Those were the 7 colors that indicate the grade of treasure that could be obtained after dealing with relics or boss monsters on the 3rd floor. But I hoped that at least an orange would come out. All the grades on the 10th floor were red. However, what was in front of him was a step above it, and he could guess the reason. This was probably because of the passive effect of Take All, which would give him the best rewards when hunting. Jin Hyuk's heart beat rapidly. Again, the most exhilarating moments in life are when you check your reward. Opening unknown treasure chest. With a dazzling light, the items in the box were revealed. There are a total of 7 items in the box. You have acquired 4 pink diamonds. You have acquired priority-based designation right. You have obtained Softy Soft Grain 1 kilo. You have acquired Natural Water 50 L. You have acquired Solar Seeds X5. You have acquired Fire Spitting Snails X3. If it was a red box, there would only be 3 items inside it, but this was an orange box. Yeah, I was rewarded nicely. Even this was good for him. He had thought that this was an overflowing enough gift. But Jin Hyuk, who had checked the final item, could barely hold back his scream. The stone which blocks the sun. Jin Hyuk grinned from ear to ear as one of the best drops arrived. I know the odds of getting this from 100 treasure boxes were under 1%. Insane. Once more, he realized that the effect of Monopolize was amazing. Then this... Maybe I will also get the sweetest rewards up on the 4th floor. Jin Hyuk was already drawing up a new plan in his mind. The 4th floor has opened. A message was sent to all the players in the Tower of Trials. What? The 4th floor is open? The boss is defeated? The active players in the tower knew all about the 3rd floor boss that no one could even touch. It was hard to believe that someone successfully beat such a monster. Really? He did it. Patrick of the Olympus Guild gulped in disbelief. He had been skeptical of the masked player. It was inevitable since even a perfectly made raid group had failed to even touch the boss. But now those doubts vanished. All done solo. Maria, the European ranker, also had a complicated expression. There was a relief since the end of humankind was averted again. But there was also shame at the difference in their skills. Those 2 emotions ran through her mind. The birth of a hero. Still, I'm glad we earned 90 days until we have to attack the next floor. This time, we will prepare properly. The other rankers chimed in relief. On the other hand, Tenwei, who didn't like the situation, clicked his tongue. Relief? Happy? So foolish. Do you think the success of this raid will benefit us? In the future, that guy is going to suck everything up. Everyone flinched as he told the truth. Currently, the whole community refers to this player as unknown. After the highlight video of the boss raid was uploaded, the phenomenon had only gotten more intense. An overwhelmingly popular player. At this point, there was no one more famous. It could weaken our position. I do not like it much. The room became noisy as the atmosphere changed. Sighs of relief turned into ones of envy and jealousy. At that moment. What do you mean to say? Teresa jumped from her seat. About what? Tenwei asked. We all survived, thanks to him. Let's be honest. Who in here can deal with that boss? How could anyone here walk into that hell with necromancers who don't even have experience? Instead of showing their gratitude, they were all only concerned about their own growth. It was like saving a drowned person who then asked about the whereabouts of his bags instead of thanking their savior. Of course, she despised Tenwei the most. Ha! You are taking his side of him because he is your acquaintance. I am speaking the truth here. Teresa drew a clear line. And if the rest of you have the same thoughts as this man, I will no longer be a part of this. No. Are you saying you want to leave the meeting? Patrick asked in slight shock. This was a place where rankers made connections with each other. Of course, there was no elected leader. But no one left since wealth and honor was guaranteed. But Teresa seemed sure. Do you believe that man this much? I do. She believed in him more than anyone. If there was a player who could see the end of this tower, then it was that man alone. And if she had to decide whose side she would take, there was no doubt about who Teresa would choose. At the same time, Jin Hyuk exited the tower after receiving his rewards. Before heading up to the 4th floor, he wanted to rest and recover his stamina. Since we achieved the results which exceeded our expectations, maybe indulge in some luxury. He should go to a 5-star hotel, take a hot bath, and then enjoy a full-course meal. But it was then. His phone vibrated. Caller, Yu Yunhua. Checking the name on the screen, he answered the call. Hello? Oppa? Yu Yunhua's voice was trembling as if her world was about to crumble. The voice implied that it was serious. What happened, Yunhua? Jin Hyuk asked carefully. Oppa, grandfather. Grandfather collapsed. At this rate, I don't think he will make it past the night. If it was Yunhua's grandfather, then it was Yu Chun-young? Come to think of it, Kim Gitai had asked her about him during his awakening test. He had asked if the old man was fine, and Yu Yunhua had responded with some anger. a veteran who he had shared his time in the Tower of Trials with. If Yu Yunhua, the child who smiled brightly, became so confused and contacted me, it had to be because there was no hope left. It meant that she wanted to share her sadness with someone. Where are you? Where are you now? Seoul National University Hospital. But even if Appa comes, for today Jin Hyuk would have to change his schedule a bit. I will be there now. Just wait 30 minutes. Oppa, over here. He saw Yu Yunhua waiting in front of the hospital room. Thank you for coming here. I really didn't know who else to tell. Her haggard face and eyes told him that she had cried a lot. He understood that she was upset, but the priority now was to understand the old man's condition. Can you tell me what the problem is? It is a symptom of explosive magic overdose. Grandfather originally had a chronic illness, but after the tower appeared, it had gotten worse. The magic from the tower caused these changes in the old man. Relics that were stored in the museum, or items similar to them. The magic that emanated from these objects could lead to various side effects, so the cause of all this was predictable. It must have something to do with the material arts the old man learned. The interaction between the tower's magic and his long-accumulated internal ki was what was causing this to happen. Maybe we can try something. Really? At Jin Hyuk's words, Yu Yunhua looked surprised. When everyone else had given up, this man said that he might be able to save her grandfather. The chances were slim, but it felt like her frozen heart began to melt again in an instant just by this glimmer of hope. Jin Hyuk narrowed his eyes. Yu Chunyoung. Korea's strongest? Name, Yu Chunyoung. Gender, male. Age, 78. Level, 5. Strength, 25. Agility, 50. Stamina, 38. Magic, 7. Chi, 103. Stat points, 0. Coins, 0. Occupation, none. Unique ability, Tai Chi martial form. Skill, LV13 true. Tai Chi cultivation method, LV12 no retreat in face of battle. LV12 strengthening. Copy condition. Yu Chunyoung's death is almost certain. If you save his life, you may copy one of his skills. The Eye of Gluttony was truly splendid, yet a person cannot be judged by their levels. Especially not this old man. The exact player rankings weren't even appropriately determined yet, but if he had to pick the strongest player in Korea, it would be Yu Chunyoung. Regardless of his level and ability, he was great. They said he had never entered a dungeon before this, and that was true. The old man had increased his level while dealing with monsters outside. It was a pity that he hadn't seen it because he was inside the labyrinth. That is why I came here on purpose. That was why he came here despite the promise of comfortable rest and delicious meals. Of course, it was partly because of his friendship with Yu Yunhua. But the most important factor was the chance to copy his skills. The opportunity to meet a giant like Yu Chunyoung wasn't something that happened often. At that moment, Miss Yunhua, where are you coming from? We need to leave. One of the healers became silent as they recognized someone familiar. P-player Kang Jin Hyuk? The one who got the S rank? Right, it is him. What is happening here? How would they not know? This was one of Korea's most searched information. Not only did he get S rank for his magic, but he had also shown amazing skills against Chun Yu-seong and Hong Daeokyo. The public would not forget it anytime soon. How does Miss Yeonhwa know him? I have known Appa for a long time. He came with me to look at grandfather's condition. To check the condition? Are you saying the player Kang Jin Hyuk will treat him? Everyone looked doubtful. Well, it must be hard to believe. Because a random person had come out of nowhere and claimed that he would be able to heal this old man. No, they were likely more terrified that something more important would get revealed here. Damn it. Why did a ranker have to appear now? He couldn't have noticed that we were trying to suck up the money while doing the treatments, right? As if. Can someone who only knows how to fight tell the difference between veins and arteries? Through mind reading, he was able to discern their true thoughts. Those who do business by preying on the hopes of others are trash. These guys were the worst. They knew that Yu Yunhua wouldn't give up on her grandfather. Disgusting. Making others suffer and cry to fill their stomachs? Jin Hyuk's expression became chilly as he opened his subspace inventory. What appeared was a glass vial with a special liquid inside it, the elixir. However, the healers' faces didn't change even after seeing this. On the contrary, They just clicked their tongues. I know what you are trying to do, but we already used elixirs before this. Heo Jinsu, the representative of the healers, opened his mouth. How could they have not done everything to treat the man? Of course, they tried everything, like elixirs and medicinal herbs. Well, you may have talent in combat, but this field is different from that. Even the materials of the tower cannot help him. It is fine. Do not worsen the conditions of the patient with your little knowledge. Words of ridicule flowed out of their mouths. What? Were they actually trying to act like they cared? To have such a high ego and elitist attitude? Now he understood why the system had set such specific copy conditions. It was disgusting how they acted like they knew everything about the tower. But all this did was make Jin Hyuk want to hit them even harder. With a tilt of his head, he asked the healers. No. Did you use the elixir as it was? Of course. Haha. No way. Those who are well-versed in this field wouldn't have just poured the elixir into the throat of a patient who is suffering from runaway magic unless their heads are empty. The healers' faces became red as they felt their egos being stabbed. But if they protested now, they would simply admit that they did what he said. This forced them to hold back their words. Nice. Now they look like docile sheep. The symptoms have gotten this bad because the cultivation used by the patient is incompatible with the way magic is gathered from the tower. The different energies would then rage within the body. In other words, the disease can be healed if the energies within him are diluted or released. The player Kang Jin Hyuk knows how to do that? Of course, I know it. Just like the amazing healers in here. Why are you being so humble? The method to save the patient can only be used after they have fallen into a coma. Isn't that why you have been patiently waiting until now? Jin Hyuk smiled brightly. An unrelated person might like that smile. From the viewpoint of the healers, that was a smile they wanted to wipe off that face as soon as possible. If we say we don't know, we can never set foot in this industry again. Heo Jinsu grit his teeth. A healer that had lesser skills compared to a combat player. No, we were waiting for that too. As I thought. So with my little knowledge, I will be learning what you healers do from now. Jin Hyuk took a step back. How does he know that? He cannot know about the money we took, right? Well, how else would he know? Jin Hyuk smiled. I am the only one who knows about the account. In particular, we are using borrowed names and cryptocurrency and distributing the money through 7 places. Even God couldn't find it now. Looking at the borrowed name on the account. Now I see. You used a Bitcoin wallet as well? You must have eaten up tens of billions in total. No wonder you don't have any money left to get the ingredients. No do... Heo Jinsu took a step back as things no one else should know became known. Such a deceptive ability. Although conditions were applied to it, the ability to read minds was amazing. But never. At Heo Jinsu's following thoughts, be caught. This time, it was Jin Hyuk's turn to become shocked. The resident? A resident of the tower made contact with a human? Just how much does he know? Heo Jinsu's true feelings were shown to Jin Hyuk. His thoughts that followed were most shocking. Here, I have to end it here. The fact that the Black Cloud Guild and the Dweller had contacted us shouldn't be known. Jin Hyuk frowned. What was this guy talking about? Could it be that this wasn't just for money? In an instant, the copy condition flashed into his mind. Uncover the plans. At first, he had thought that meant he just needed to dig up the corruption. But it felt that something more was happening. For one, the Black Cloud Guild was one of the top guilds in Korea, and that's before the mention of the Tower Dwellers. A player had just conquered the 3rd floor today, but the Dwellers of the tower could only be encountered after reaching the 15th floor. Then, that meant that first contact was made from the side of the Dwellers to the Fathers of Fighting Guild. He wasn't sure of their purpose, though. However, one thing was certain. Their plans involved the death of Yu Chun-young. From their point of view, human players would be enemies who threatened the tower. This was becoming interesting, at that moment. Appa. What do you mean? You mean they stole the money we gave them to heal the master? You fucking bastards! What the hell did you do? Don't ever think about living after today. The healers they had trusted had stabbed them in the back. It was no surprise they were furious. Jin Hyuk grabbed the fluids and medicines that were placed on the table. Naturally, they were just props to support his act. Tools to hide the fusion skill and properly get the job done. Jin Hyuk, who had finished his prep, looked at Heo Jinsu. Keep your eyes here. See how the elixir is appropriately used. Jin Hyuk took the elixir and approached Yu Chunyoung. Any normal person would have been long dead. The bulging blood vessels were clear symptoms that his body couldn't handle this for much longer. Indeed, he was truly strong. He wasn't letting go of the string of life despite being in such terrible agony. 1 or 2 drops won't be enough. I will feed him all of it. As the condition was quite serious, he decided to pour everything inside the man's throat. The Tears of Stars was pricey stuff, but it was a low price if he could copy one ability from the old man. Gulp! The liquid ran down the old man's throat and seeped into his body, his pale face slowly turning red as it did so. His breathing became stable as his cold sweat gradually stopped. All of the bulging blood vessels also slowly settled. After a long period of suffering, the man finally recovered. Condition met. Choose one of Yu Chunyoung's skills? He knew what to choose. You have selected to copy the unique ability, True Heavenly Flower Cultivation Technique S. True Tai Chi Cultivation Method. Acquisition Difficulty S. Description. This is a self-defense and QI cultivation technique developed by Yu Chunyoung, which can absorb magic from the air. When used, the magic recovery speed is increased by 30%, and it has the effect of making the body look younger. Status windows appeared in succession. Jin Hyuk reviewed its contents. Grandfather. Yu Yunhua touched her grandfather's cheek. Heo Jinsu, who had been watching the scene, stood with his mouth wide open as he was unsure of what had just happened. I cannot believe it. The opponent was someone who fought, but he also knew the method of treating runaway magic, something that no one else had known until now. It was easy to say that the elixir concentration had to be done perfectly. However, it was impossible to understand if it was perfect or not unless the body reacted to it. But the opponent did it all in just one go. Tremble. Heo Jinsu trembled at the overwhelming potential he felt from this S-rank player. Add to that the medicinal knowledge. It was like dealing with a monster. Though all he could do was think about running away, his body wouldn't move. The money you received, cough it back up, and you'll get to leave. You'll forgive me if I send back the money? Isn't this a good deal? Is money what he wants? Heo Jinsu considered it. If money was the opponent's goal, he didn't mind returning it all. The mission to kill the old man had failed, but at least the information regarding his identity hadn't leaked yet. He didn't have to worry for long. I will do it. Then, as soon as the money is put into this account, I will release you. Jin Hyuk handed him a piece of paper. An account with an untraceable number is a benefit given to S-rank players alone. A new financial transaction occurred. 36,150,000 won has been deposited into the account of Kang Jin Hyuk. A notification window appeared on Jin Hyuk's cell phone. Around 36 billion. Most of the amount stolen from the old man was returned. Can I leave now? Heo Jinsu asked. Yes, it was a nice transaction. Jin Hyuk smiled and stepped away from the door. No one was now blocking the path, which meant that there was a way out. Come out now. To thank God! As soon as the door opened, the healers rushed out, worrying that Jin Hyuk might change his mind and come for them. Are you going to send them off just like that? That isn't like you, Elise commented to him. Elise, Jin Hyuk slowly said. From now on, find out where he's going and who he is talking to. What? You let him go on purpose? He won't speak even if we ask him. Above all else, neither Black Cloud Guild and Dwellers would give them much information as they are just disposable pieces. No matter how many ants were killed, it was futile. So, we need to make the ant run back to its queen. Jin Hyuk smiled. After a few moments, only Yu Chunyoung and Jin Hyuk were left in the room. He had told the others that he needed to make sure that the old man's body had absorbed all of the elixir into his body. Therefore, he had asked to leave and rest for a bit. Jin Hyuk then looked at the man. No one is here now. No answer came. I know that you already regained consciousness, Jin Hyuk added. Right. Haha. I thought I hid my presence fine. You are a lot smarter than I thought, young man. The old man who everyone thought was unconscious was awake. Was it my breathing? No, it was perfect. No player of any skill would be able to detect Yu Chunyoung's breathing patterns. It was the eye of gluttony. I am sorry. I didn't mean to deceive you. It is fine. The timing of my appearance was quite strange. Besides, I think there'd be some doubts if someone came with the cure for runaway magic that no one else knew about. Right. Yu Chunyoung laughed aloud. Had Jin Hyuk tried to say something else, Yu Chunyoung wouldn't have believed him. However, seeing that he was laughing, he probably liked Jin Hyuk at least a little. I am someone who has a hard time trusting people, so what do you want from this old man? There is one thing I want to ask. You are someone who saved my life. I will answer anything. Yu Chunyoung nodded with a bright smile. But, sir, you fought with a dweller on the first day of Tower of Trials. Am I right? This question wasn't expected. How do you know? The smile vanished right away. Chunyoung's reaction, Jin Hyuk bit his lip. I was right. No matter how strong the magic coming out from the Tower of Trials was, it wasn't enough to send a man like this into a mana-induced coma. Just by looking through the eye of gluttony, he was confident this old man was a ranker. Then, it means that something pushed the old man to the edge. Of course, not a single non-player could even touch him. Even if you searched the entire world, only those who lived in the tower would have the strength. Jin Hyuk was thinking of something huge based on these assumptions. Yu Chunyoung had confirmed the premise that someone was there. Ha 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 ha. You really have a knack for surprising people. How far do you plan to lift and release an old man's heart? Yu Chunyoung sighed. Can I take it as my prediction being correct? This was a story about the dweller. The main question, however, was what floor this dweller lived on. Can you tell me something like specific characteristics, appearance, fighting style, statues? Anything works. He is an Asian with long black hair and white clothes. The weapon is a sword, and it was scary. I've never seen anyone wielding a sword that quickly. An Asian person who used a sword? He knew who it was. A Murim person. A large force from the 21st floor of the tower, a denizen of Murim. As that faction dominated the entire 21st floor, they were known to move aggressively to climb higher in the tower. Even when I was playing Tower of Trials, I had a lot of trouble because of them. Anyone who posed any threat to them, they would mercilessly kill. They would use any means and methods necessary to do so. A group of people akin to leeches. Jin Hyuk frowned. As expected, the most troublesome one had appeared. Someone you know? Something like that. Hey, I see. I expected you to know. Yu Chunyoung nodded his head and said, Can I ask you something now? Sure. I know about all the high-ranking guilds in Korea and their members, but you seem to know more than even them. Even the best in Korea didn't know who that person was. Right. Since Murim was on the 21st floor, it was natural for people to not know, except for one person. Who is me? Ah, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I just wanted to put my hopes onto someone who could help us out of this darkness. And that is me? Even though I know nothing about you, I have met so many people till this age. And even though I might not look like this, there is something I like which I hate equally. Yu Chunyoung smiled. The eye of truth sees behind a human. As one accumulates time and experience, the ability to discern people would be improved. You must be overestimating me, sir. You think so? In my eyes, the players in the world are now being overestimated. It has just been 2 months, but they classify people based on magic and unique abilities. That is the most ridiculous thing for me. It was said that it would take 10,000 hours to become a master of anything. Even Rome wasn't built in a day. But the world had changed, and people began to assume that they had become strong because of a single ability. This was something that Yu Chunyoung didn't like. But you are different. What is it? It feels like you have been through things countless times. You have tasted the bitter taste of defeat and victory too many times, as if it was as simple as sleeping. And you also showed the skills to overcome such slumps. It isn't that much. Ha ha ha! And the humble nature. However, it is impossible to hide it from me. Yu Chunyoung burst into laughter. Of course, he didn't forget to add, Don't worry. I will not tell this to anyone. That was the truth. Yu Chunyoung wasn't the kind of person who would recklessly speak about things. Besides, no one would believe it. But, you saved my life using something precious like an elixir, so I want to give something back. Is there something you wish for? At those words, Jin Hyuk fell into deep thought. This man was the most prestigious martial artist in Korea. Not just medals, but the man must have also learned hundreds of martial forms. And of course his money would be enough to fill multiple rooms. Actually, there is something I need. Can I ask for anything? Do not worry and tell me. He did say anything, right? Jin Hyuk smiled. No matter how polite he had been, he wasn't the type to stay humble when it involved rewards. You're supposed to say you want to eat when you are hungry. Otherwise, you would die while thinking about your fame and position. I would like to receive the twin dragon swords the elder owns. Twin dragon swords? This time it was Yu Chunyoung's turn to be shocked. He clearly didn't expect this request. Did I ask for something impossible? Jin Hyuk smiled, an innocent and bright smile spread on his face. It is difficult, but I am not someone who says two different things with the same mouth. Yu Chunyoung calmed his expression. He was a bit shocked. But this man had saved his life. He was willing to give him all his assets if he asked. Do you need anything more? No. That is fine. He was getting what he needed, and it was time to leave. After finishing his conversation, Jin Hyuk immediately headed toward Lotte. Many things had happened, but they were all according to plan. He had borrowed a large amount of money, received information, and was about to get a new weapon too. He should eat the tastiest foods. I have everything filling the pocket, so I should rest now. Normally, luxury was only for those who could afford it. Suite rooms that cost more than 2 million a night were something he used to need a whole month to earn. But he was no longer bound by money since he had gotten billions from those crooked healers. He took the membership as well as the benefits that were offered by Signal. As the door opened, he observed the hotel suite which came into view. Marble floors and chandeliers. Furniture imported from Italy and Germany filled the room. And of course, a glass window covering one wall gave him a unique nighttime view of Seoul. Jin Hyuk liked this. This is why money is nice. There was so much food that even 5 people couldn't easily finish it all. Jin Hyuk cut the steak with his knife and fork and revealed the pink flesh underneath the caramelized exterior. The meat juices and gravy that entered his mouth were fulfilling. And this wine, the Chateau La Fleur d'Eau, was called the water drops of the gods. Insane. This was a completely different taste from old and damp rice, fresh kimchi, and soybean paste. Happiness came after hard work. Because there was a difficult past, the present joy would shine brighter. But as he continued to enjoy his dinner, a familiar type of content came out of the TV that had been turned on. Mr. Eun-seol, what do you think is the most effective way to climb a tower? A special feature related to the Tower of Trials. A female announcer and a man with an impressionable smile were talking. It was Jang Yoon-seo, a ranker belonging to the Dangun Guild, considered the strongest in Korea. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. Well, there are 2 ways to get stronger in the tower. The first way is to hone your unique abilities and skills or raise your level. Like a game? Right. As you get stronger, you can clear more dungeons. Then what about the second method? Using coins. This is the currency that can be used within the tower. Yes? I think the power to purchase better items is the best way to become a ranker. Until now, the dollar was the key currency moving the world. But in the future, the coins will be what drives the world. I am also looking forward to the future and investing all the coins I have collected to upgrade the broadcasting system. Jin Hyuk, who listened to this, snorted. Investing coins in broadcasting. There is currently a trend among the players to upgrade their broadcasting systems to gain more subscribers. Of course, this was a stupid thing to do. What would they do by promoting colorful thumbnails for 100 days? Wasn't the tower the most important thing? Even if they show hours of the tower, would anyone care? Quality. The overwhelming performance that came with clearing out places in the tower was what captivated the viewers. The 4th floor is open, but no one has entered the 4th floor yet. Can you please explain this? The announcer changed the topic. That is because the 4th floor is structured so that the rest of the players can enter only when the player who opened the gate declares that he will attack. Of course, If the person doesn't do it for 10 days, others can enter normally. Ah, was there such a rule? Then why didn't he go up? Haha. Naturally. The fourth floor is an area that has a large number of zombies, and one can only clear it by defending the base. Besides, there is only one chance to challenge the fourth floor. And one failure is the end of it all? No second chance? In the game, if we fail, we end up being reset to level 1. But in reality, humanity will perish right away. In that sense, we have only one chance. No way. Yes. It takes at least a month or two, as the unknown player cannot attack without working with the large guilds. We need at least that much time to prepare for it and get the items and resources needed. Are you saying that attempting it before that is tough? I will bet my name on it. If one goes there without proper preparation, the difficulty of zombie waves will start to jump up. People might think about going early and getting rewards, but what if they cannot stand it and we fall? No man with common sense would do such a thing. But just 1 second after, player unknown announces the attack on the fourth floor. The announcer who saw this spoke happily. All players who will challenge the fourth floor, please prepare. Yang Yun-seok smiled. In the next 8 hours, the first wave begins, and all of the viewers who are watching. If the 100 waves cannot be blocked, humanity will perish. We're at a loss for words. The world turned upside down due to the sudden declaration of attack on the fourth floor. What is this? He wants to start now? Is this for real? Insane. Call all the rankers right now. This is an emergency. I am telling you to stop acting out and come. Have you drawn up the list of candidates for the place? Bring it. All the data on the fourth floor we have been collecting so far. All of the executives of the large guilds shouted at their subordinates. It was necessary for each team to preemptively choose a good location on the fourth floor. This was due to the nature of the wave of attacks on said floor. Every minute and every second was precious for humanity. They had to lead the raid on the fourth floor in just 8 hours. Additionally, they had to finish planning all possible routes in the remaining time. While everyone was rushing around until the morning, Jin Hyuk woke up from the soft bed. His joints felt a little stiff, but his body felt refreshed, as if he was reborn. It seemed that all the fatigue I accumulated over the years was relieved all at once. In order to start on this new fight, he needed that much stamina, at least. The rest probably didn't have this. They must be in the worst condition. As he had deliberately declared the attack at such a late hour, the big guilds must have been mentally and physically exhausted after trying to use their heads. But what else could be done? This isn't a sport being played in a stadium. There was no fair play. This was the fourth floor, where fewer challengers meant greater rewards. Time remaining before the first wave, 1:37:50 ferns. Now was the time to head to the fourth floor of the Tower of Trials. This was the first hurdle that caused many players to quit the game. Right. It was inevitable. There were 100 waves of normal, special, and combination-type zombies on this floor of the tower. Challengers also had to play defensive by placing defense towers and securing food, clothing, and shelter within their chosen base. Above all, the ridiculous penalty that their entire account would get reset if the player didn't clear all 100 waves made many players curse the game. The Tower of Trials wasn't a hated game for no reason. And right now, a player appeared on the fourth floor. Every time I see it, it looks like shit. Jin Hyuk looked around. In keeping with the theme of zombies, the fourth floor was made to look like a place that had faced an apocalyptic end. Burned out buildings and abandoned cars. A city that civilization had abandoned. One couldn't help but feel sad, perhaps because this was a sight that reflected the future of mankind. It was then. A status window popped up. You entered the fourth floor of the Tower of Trials. You are the first. Other players will be able to enter the fourth floor after 20 minutes. He had a 20-minute bonus for being the person who cleared the third floor boss. This would be the time to decide on success or failure. I need to hurry. Jin Hyuk looked towards the north, but his speed wasn't good, considering the rough path. It was a road that disappeared due to sinkholes and was blocked by vein-covered walls. A path that was full of obstacles. He stopped as he arrived at a huge stadium. I was almost too late. Because he needed to secure the base he wanted before the other players came in, he had to move quickly, even if it was difficult. That was because some other players had the ability to accelerate quickly or even move through space. Where here now? Found it. Jin Hyuk placed his palm on the pillar at the entrance of the stadium, and at that moment, using priority point designation ticket, Sangam World Cup Stadium has been selected as the base. A red flag was placed on the stadium. This was a warning. It indicated that the owner of this place was fixed, so others should look for another site. Spraying Softy Soft Grain 1 kilos. Planting solar seeds X5. Preparing natural water 50 L. Jin Hyuk took the rewards he had gotten after defeating Soulless. The grains, the seed, and the soil. Jin Hyuk chose plants among the countless defense options available on the 4th floor. You can place 1 plant at each entrance to the stadium and place the last one in the center. Time left until solar seeds hatch, 55 May, 33s. Time remaining until Softy Soft Grains hatch, 5 19 Milm, 10s. By the time the first wave arrived, these plants would be ready to do their job and make this place a stronghold. The grains would be useful as food that will sprout up. It was then. Blue status windows appear one after another in front of him. Oppa, I called you because you told me to call when I come to the 4th floor. Taemin is with me. Jin Hyuk Hyung, we have arrived. It is the 4th floor entrance, right? Yu Yeonhwa and Lee Taemin, his co-workers and fellow veterans, and Teresa, the saintess, were people he had been in touch with first. I will be there soon. Jin Hyuk sprinkled the water on the seeds. Growth speed of plants increased by 20%. Within about 10 minutes, Jin Hyuk arrived back at the place where he had entered the floor on. The 4th floor had begun to become crowded. Almost all of the famous guilds are participating. Despite the tight schedule, they had managed to gather in large numbers, making their desire for the rewards obvious. But the opportunity to pick up an A-grade random box didn't come around often. No matter how early it was in the Tower of Trials, even those who had completed the tower would have known that an A-grade box was in the top 5% of most covered items, and the next step for each player would be different depending on the item that came out. As Jin Hyuk looked over at the players, Hyung! Oppa! Yu Yeonhwa and Lee Taemin found him and waved their hands. Mr. Jin Hyuk. Teresa, too, smiled brightly as she came up to him. Jin Hyuk had met Yu Yeonhwa only the day before, but it wasn't for a long time. I am sorry for calling you all so suddenly. I didn't have time to explain as things went faster than I thought. No. We had to come since Hyung called us. I don't care where it is. It is better to take the side of Mr. Jin Hyuk. That phrasing was a little sad. From now on, all 3 of them would be his companions. He would be the vicious shop owner who violated the Employment and Labor Act while they were his faithful part-timers. This was the ideal position that Jin Hyuk wanted. Look at that. Yu Yeonhwa and Lee Taemin, you 2 attacked the B-class labyrinth on the 2nd floor alone, right? Teresa, that. You said you left the meeting, but was it to stick with the potential benefits from here? Wait, is that Kang Jin Hyuk? This time it's a super special divine player from Korea. Is that person Kang Jin Hyuk? The one who got a reawakening which made his magic increase immensely? Right. They said that it was much higher than a normal S rank. Because of him, people said that ranks should be further subdivided. It seems like there's a lot of amazing players here, as well as that unknown player. Every member there is terrifying. Won't they be stronger than any other raid group? Since there were such hot topic players here, the attention of the people around them was concentrated. Of course, Jin Hyuk wasn't the type to care about that. Did everyone prepare well? We prepared diligently. But Appa, are we okay with just us? The zombie waves here are numerous. Yu Yeonhwa shivered slightly. Terrible memories of the past where she was assailed with the smell of blood and flesh. I do have the ability to summon pets, but it is still difficult to use since I am low level. In particular, it would be difficult to use it to block waves of zombies. Lee Taemin also said something similar. It would be burdensome to face the waves without proper preparation, but isn't it more fun like this? Jin Hyuk gave them an innocent smile. It was as if he was gleefully expecting the chance to experience a higher level difficulty. Fun? Appa? This isn't a game. We might die if we get bitten by zombies. Sigh. Hyung still hasn't given up on his old habit. Isn't this like a top-level abuse? Mr. Jin Hyuk is a pervert. The 3 sighed at the same time. How could they be so frustrated right from the start? Did you deliberately choose the stadium? Stadium? Sangam Stadium? Please tell me it isn't true. It is true. Hyung, have you lost it? That is the toughest one out of all the bases. It is a large base that must be defended by at least 100 people. Jin Hyuk knew that. That, Mr. Jin Hyuk, may I ask one thing? Teresa, who was silent, raised her hand. Yes, ask. As far as I know, we need to have a minimum number of people to carry out the defensive battle, but I think we are lacking in numbers. Come to think of it. Right. I didn't pay attention to it as I was too preoccupied with the stadium. Yu Yeonhwa and Lee Taemin were surprised. The minimum required number for a team on this floor was 5 people, but only 4 had gathered. This meant that they needed another person to officially start. The last one is coming soon. Jin Hyuk spoke without worry, and just in time. A roar from a distance. Well, he wasn't the kind to appear quietly. A vast scar appears on the ground as a dust cloud rises at the blades passing. What is that, madman? Do not get in my way and get out, because I will cut all of you down. It was none other than Chun Yusong. He was angry and had cold eyes, a very expected expression. Chun Yusong, who had devoted himself to training, received a message early in the morning. Come to the 4th floor entrance in an hour. Jin Hyuk had sent it. Funny. Chun Yusong frowned at the message. There was no reason for him to come out here. His training was already lacking if he wanted to overcome the monster in front of him, so he ignored the message. And another message came in. If you come now, I will duel with you without a left arm and right leg as a handicap. He needed to hold himself back even at this provocation. It was just a childish attempt. Once he gets caught, it would be like falling for an opponent's cheap tricks. Right? Then I'll just use my right brain and close both eyes to fight, okay? Be patient. Be patient. Hold back that anger and use it as a basis for getting revenge next time. If he waited, the chance would surely come. Okay? Ah, that looks right. Don't worry. I won't bother you despite you having your tail between your legs. And with that, the last string of his reason was cut. Kill him. He had to kill Jin Hyuk. Chun Yusong was provoked, left everything behind, and headed to the 4th floor. And right now, he could see the culprit. You are here? Here. Jin Hyuk waved his hand. He thought he was going to die waiting for the last piece. Anyways, he should have kept his sense of time right, at least. Chun Yusong held his sword out. It wasn't his normal sword, but a new sword with runes engraved on it. As expected, he got it. Elemental sword. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a special item that could compensate for a swordsman's weakness in long-distance battle by injecting elemental magic into their weapon. I am here to prove whether I am scared or not. Chun Yusong grabbed the sword with both hands. Due to the sharply focused magic, even the ground began to shake. This man was unstoppable. It is good to prove it, but to fight with an unfinished sword. At Jin Hyuk's words, Chun Yusong became stiff. What do you mean? I mean it literally. The elemental sword is definitely not bad, but it needs to be completed before the power can be fully shown. At the end of the day, the A-grade random box from this floor also contains an item that can complete the elemental sword. What you want is the fire element, right? Nonsense. A random box is random. There is no way to know what comes from it. Right. You cannot get a glimpse of what is inside a random box in a normal manner. But I prefer the unusual shortcuts, you know? Jin Hyuk smiled while Chun Yusong bit his lips. If anyone else had said this, he wouldn't even care. But this man was someone who was an exception to everything. If it was Jin Hyuk, he might really be able to peek into everything. If you are right, then you mean you will use me as bait? Isn't life all about using each other for personal gains? Besides, there is nothing you would lose, right? Better items are needed to get stronger. There was no such thing as easy growth, but there were cases where items simply brought rankers to the upper tiers. Finally, damn it! There must be material in a random box to complete the sword. Chun Yusong placed his sword back into its sheath. Nice. There were a lot of ups and downs, but 5 people had gathered here, even if one of them was highly suspicious of the one whose aims were vague. Party of 5 has been formed. The minimum number of people to defend the base has been met. 5 players, including Jin Hyuk, headed to the stadium. Lee Taemin and Yu Yeonhwa glanced at Chun Yu-sung. Wasn't this the bastard who would pull out a sword when people just make eye contact with him? Being on the same team made them feel anxious. Mr. Jin Hyuk, is this really fine? Teresa, who had met Chun Yu-sung in the corridor of the Fallen, was equally anxious. It is fine. There's a surprisingly docile side of that guy, even if he looks like that. He won't stab us in the back of the head as long as the wave keeps coming. Still, trust me. He had fought the guy the most, so he understood what kind of person he was. He knew Chun Yu-sung wasn't the type to stab someone in the back. Maybe. It was then. Ah, right, Appa. I almost forgot. Take this. As if something crossed her mind, Yu Yeonhwa opened her subspace and soon took out an unusual pair of swords. It was the twin dragon swords, as expected. It was a relic of the past, but it was said to be of comparable quality to relics from inside the tower. That wasn't an exaggeration, because it felt like his heart would sink by just touching them. Grandfather asked me to give you, but really, this is something Grandfather loved too much. How did you manage to get it? I just did. He thought it would look good on me. Jin Hyuk frowned slightly. There was no need to talk about all that right now. That was because he was focusing entirely on the defense that was right in front of him, while the team continued to chat slightly. We are here. This is our base. Eventually they reached the entrance. Ha! 5 people blocking this huge place. I remember when we blocked the outbreak in Amsterdam. I never wanted to go through such a thing again. Yu Yeonhwa and Teresa sighed. Why are the 2 strong women so nervous? What? Still, being with you, I feel relieved. Me too. Somehow if I am with Mr. Jin Hyuk, no matter how desperate the situation is, I think something can be done. Nothing good will come from buttering me up. I was just telling the truth. You attacked the corridor alone. I saw it myself. What was with these people? Did they want something more? Well, it wasn't a bad feeling to be praised. At least these were people he trusted. In a world that had changed like this, it wasn't common to have someone you could trust. It was then. Who occupied the stadium? Koreans? An unfamiliar voice. A man with tightly pulled hair and tattoos all over his body appeared from under the buildings. An Asian man with a white face and dark hair asked him. His was an average appearance that no one would look at twice if they passed him on the street. But what caught his eye was the sword and the pattern engraved on it. Jin Hyuk frowned. That text was, no doubt, Namgung family. One of the members of Murim on the 25th floor of Tower of Trials. Is it true that the Chinese players and the dwellers got into contact? And with that, this chapter comes to an end. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button, as today's aim is 1,000 likes. Comment part 10 below for the next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.